All right. What's up, crew? We'll just wait for a few people to come on and here we are. Hey, what's up, team? We'll just give a chance for a few people to come on. We've got a few already, but for those just coming on, welcome. Welcome to probably what's going to be, hey, Haley, how's it going, sis? This will probably be my last talk show. The talk show is coming to an end. Hey, what's up, Regina? What's up, Serena? It's good to have a few people here. Hey, Leanne, what's up? Look, let's get started. I've got a good friend of ours. His lovely wife, Bridget, does our stretch and tone classes at Friday at HQ, which will hopefully soon we'll be starting them again. But he is a diabetes specialist. He works at Auckland Uni and also Auckland DHB. And he's just come on, and look, it's very important. A lot of our people are suffering from this. So we've got some really good questions that people have already asked me to ask. But please, what's up, Ange? Please feel free to ask any questions as we're going, and we'll come back to them. Look, just a bit about what we're doing. It's been very stressful with what we're doing. We're literally feeding hundreds of people every week, and we're doing it. It really is God's plan and doing God's work and serving. So we've been very blessed. So I think it's just I'll bring Warwick on, and then we'll open with a prayer, because we need as much hope and as much prayer as possible with the work we're doing at the moment. So let's bring in Warwick. What's up, brother?
Mano, Dave, how are you?
Very good, man. Before we get started, I think I'll open us up with a prayer. And look, my prayers are very quick, so it's let's just we'll bow our heads and pray. And Lord, we just want to give you thanks and praise to you for really, just opening so many doors for us. And as I just was been thinking, and it's so emotional with the stories that we're getting from from families and single mothers that are in need of hope and so much more. So we just pray to you and pray to give us continue to give us strength, all our BBM team and everyone affiliated with us. Continue to give us strength to push through any obstacle and continue to serve our people. We pray for all of our members and everyone out there that's doing it tough at the moment. And there's a lot of us doing it tough. We pray to give them strength and give them hope and understand that tough times, they come to pass and we can get through this together. And we just give all thanks to you, and please continue to open the doors and continue to create miracles so we can feed people, every week, every day, every minute, every hour. So in your heavenly name, we pray. Amen. I've just been getting really emotional. Been getting quite sad, and just what
I think it's a lot of people, Dave. A lot of people. This has been. I've never been through this. Not in 100 years. This is a weird kind of time, man. Very weird.
And I just, I'm not very religious, but I believe in God. And I believe that I'm here for a reason. That's to do what I'm doing, and I've been through everything I've been through is so I can relate to others. Look, I know what it's like not to have food, and I know what it's like to have kids and wondering, how am I going to feed my kids? And then the bad thoughts start going through my mind about how I'm going to do that, and so that's what we're trying to do, break cycles, but thank you for joining us.
You're doing a tremendous job, Dave. Fantastic. Good on you, mate.
Thank you, bro. Look, thanks for joining. We've got a few viewers here today. So look, let's just get straight into this. Warwick, do you want to give us a rundown about what you're doing, bro, and what you do every day?
Yeah, sure. So I spend about 3 days a week seeing patients, and about half of those patients that I see have diabetes. And then I spend a couple of days a week at the University of Auckland and doing teaching of medical students who are going to be our future doctors, and doing some research around, amongst other things, diabetes. So that's my day job.
The amazing thing is, last year I actually got invited to talk at Otago Medical School. How amazing is this journey that here I am, I'm talking to these doctors, and then I went and spoke at
The Australasian College of Physicians.
Yeah, I went and done that. I've spoken at a few things, but what do you, just before we get into diabetes talks, why do you think that is as we're starting to get invited to these things?
So you're getting invited, Dave, because we've known for a long, long time that the basis of treating like diabetes and many lifestyle diseases is lifestyle. And there you are, you've led from the ground up a community into a major lifestyle change. And it's exercise, but it's diet and it's a way of living. And that sort of bringing together of those things that's going to make a substantial difference. Stop diabetes, how do we prevent it, how do we make it better? But you seem to have developed a program that's making a major difference in the lives of people and making real outcomes that are meaningful.
So yeah, I mean, it is amazing when you think of where we've come from to where we are now. And you know, you want to talk just a little bit about what the collaboration we're doing with Auckland Uni?
Yes, so well, we're in the early stages of getting together with BBM to try and sort of formally document what you've done. There's a lot of good stories out there of people who've lost a lot of weight and whose diabetes has gotten better. We want to try and document those stories in a formal way. And then we're going to look at a long-term follow-up because, I mean, there's been lots of interventions over time that have showed that you can lose weight in the short term, but it's maintaining that engagement, it's maintaining that weight loss, maintaining the motivation, the no excuses. It's about keeping on. And so we want to follow that up for about 5 years, and let's see how that all works out. So yeah, we're in the early stages of that, and we're excited about that possibility.
And what's the importance of anyone who knows me knows I don't deal too well with bureaucracy and research. And it's funny because when I used to go to people and trying to get funding, and they say, "Well, where's your data?" I said, "What do you mean data? You're not following me on Facebook."
Well,
see my before and afters.
Exactly.
What's the importance of this, bro? I mean, I know now, you know, that I'm like, okay, we've got to do it, but why? What's the importance of it?
Well, the importance of this is doing it in a rigorous way, okay? Because it's easy to tell stories, and we've all got war stories to tell, and one or two stories, you know, is great stories. But what we want to do is we want to understand, first of all, we think there might be something unique that BBM has, being a community organization that's bringing people together, that's making a difference. It's not a gym. It's not just doing exercise. It's so much more than that. So what are those factors? And we want to study that in a scientific way, and we can do that. We've got methods to do that. And then we can publish on that, and we can show people, and you can go when you ask for funding, and you can say, these are the things that are making a difference. The other thing about the long-term follow-up is if we can show that over the long term, people stay engaged with your programs, if they continue to lose weight, keep their weight down, diabetes gets better, then you can say to your funders, hey guys, what we're doing works, and here's the scientific proof that it works, not just our story, here's the evidence. So we've got a collection of researchers who are coming together who want to try and do the study, and hopefully we can show that what we're hearing can be documented over the long term.
And that will be powerful, you know, when we're trying to do collaborations with DHB and government. I guess because you know, end of the day, they've got to make sure that what we're saying is backed up. I guess. I mean, I get it. Why? But it is frustrating. You know, it's frustrating. But I do get it. I just got to be patient because I know. The thing is, I know when I'm sitting there in front of these people, and that's why I don't do it very often now. I don't go to meetings. Uncle Ula does, thank goodness, because I'll probably cost us money if I go there. But you know, I'm sitting there and I can sit here and tell you with 100% certainty that what we do works, and we're more than exercise, and what we do works long time, because what we preach and what we teach is lifestyle. It's not a gimmick. It's not just exercise. It's a complete package. But so I just want to thank you guys for coming on board and helping, because it looks so good when we say, you know, when even just recently I was talking to someone and I said, oh yeah, no, they're telling me what we should be doing. So, you know, we're doing something with Auckland Uni, and they're like, oh really? So,
Well, thank you for the invitation to come on board. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a big things. So let's get stuck into this, bro. Let's get stuck into this. I've already drank it. I got 2 cups of coffee and they're already gone. Oh no. Here we go. What is diabetes?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people might say, oh, everyone knows what diabetes is, but not everyone does. I mean, really, the definition of diabetes is just a high blood sugar. That's the most important thing. And in the old days, it was called the pissing evil. I'm sorry to use the language, but that's what it was called, is because your sugar was high and you used to pour out lots and lots of urine all the time because the sugar was dragging the fluid out of your body. And people didn't know how to treat it. So basically, it just means that you've got a high blood sugar. And the hormone that comes out of your pancreas, which is in the belly, called insulin, is not doing its job to get the blood sugar down.
Okay. And so, what's the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Yeah, so there are different types of diabetes, Dave, and the most common one by far is type 2 diabetes. And that's the one that's typically associated with excess weight, lifestyle, and comes on in older life, although it seems to be coming on at younger and younger ages. And type 1 diabetes, which is a much lesser proportion of diabetes, is a one that comes typically on in your teens, but can come on at any age. And one of the big differences between the two is people with type 1 diabetes have to be on insulin, otherwise they die. Whereas people with type 2 diabetes don't always need insulin, but often end up needing it later in the piece. So that's why it can get a bit confusing. But that's the major difference between the two.
So, I mean, so insulin, so that's what people they have to inject. The type 2 or any diabetic has to inject.
So insulin is something that all of us have. We all make insulin. If we didn't have insulin, we'd die. Okay, so insulin is the hormone that comes out of this organ called the pancreas that lowers your blood sugar. And when you're in a healthy state, your insulin comes out at just the right level to keep your blood sugar level in a normal range. But when you have type 2 diabetes, there's two problems. The first problem is there's a block to its action. So there's something that it prevents it from working. And the second problem is you don't make enough of it. So there's those two problems that happen. One, you've got this resistance or the block to the action of insulin. And the second problem is you don't make enough of it. And it's not I talk about it as not being a standstill disease. It's not like you can break your arm and get it fixed and then it's done. Diabetes is a progressive disorder. So over time, it gets more and more difficult to treat, and you need more and more treatments involved. And that's because this organ, the pancreas, just fails over time.
And people that are born, is that genetic? People that are born with type 1?
So there's genetics involved in both type 1 and type 2. So it's important in both conditions, but there's not just one gene, there's many genes. And it's also the interaction between lifestyle is a big factor, and the environment. So if you think about Samoa, back in the 1970s, there were very few people who had diabetes, very few, in single-figure percentage numbers.
Wow.
But now, maybe 25% of the population's got diabetes.
24%?
Yep. And that's happened in about 40 years. And that's not a gene change. That's an environment change. And so, for example, New Zealand exports lamb flaps to Samoa, exports McDonald's, those sorts of things, which just are terrible for our diets. We send that off, and then we can see the effect that has happened in the islands. So that's a problem.
25% of Samoa's got type 2 diabetes.
In some, yeah. I mean, if you look, even in New Zealand, in some age groups amongst Pacific peoples, 1 in 2 people, up in the 50, 60-year-old age groups, 1 in 2 people have diabetes.
Man, and oh man, that's happened over in Samoa. That's happened in my generation. That's happened
since the 70s.
That quickly. Man, and then, it's so true. Fizzy drinks and all these fast food joints. Because when I've gone back to the islands, everyone's just drinking fizzy or juice, which is just as bad. That cheap juice, like Raro type stuff, drinking it by the gallon. When there's nice coconuts in the trees and not doing far less exercise. And that's what I say, bro. Like, a lot of the times, we've been brainwashed thinking it's our food that's done it. And it's not our food. It's all the other rubbish that's been introduced.
Yep. So what comes, I mean, again, if you think about shopping, it's where do you want to shop? You want to shop on the outside of the supermarket. So you want to shop in the fruit and veg section. You want to shop in the fresh meat section. You want to shop in the dairy section. And you don't want to take the boxes and the cans and the bottles, high in fat, high in salt, high in sugar. So eat natural, eat naked. I mean, I'm not being rude there. Eat the naked food. That's the thing we want to eat, eh? So if you go back to a traditional Samoan diet, with lots of fish and vegetables and fruit, no problems there.
And we've got a few questions firing through here. So can anyone can get diabetes? Can anyone get it?
Probably anyone can get it. So particularly related to excess body weight, that's one of the biggest risk factors for it. And the more weight you gain, the more likely you are to get it. That said, there are a lot of people who are overweight who don't get diabetes. But again, it's that sort of interaction between between environment, genes, and weight.
We've got a question here from my good friend Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you, buddy? He's a very good friend of ours. Actually, sure, he goes to our church, SDA in Papster. What are some of the signs of diabetes onset?
Well, so this is it's a good question from Ronnie. I mean, one of the problems with diabetes is that there's often nothing. So people just don't know that it's happening. So that's the problem. So often it takes many years to pick it up. So unless you go and get a test, you might not know you have it for 4 or 5 years. Wow. But then what people might start to notice is that they're thirsty, that they're waking at night to pass urine. So they're going to the toilet more often. And then they might have some blurring of their vision because the sugars are too high and you've got fluid in your eyes and you get extra sugar in the eye and that makes your vision blurred. And then ironically, despite weight gain being a problem, when your sugars are too high, you start to lose weight. So when your sugars are really high, your body can't retain its own weight and you start to lose weight. So yeah, so if you're waking at night to pass urine, passing a lot of urine in the day, thirsty, blurry vision, that's time to get checked. But I think, Dave, in people where there's a family history, and there's often a family history, once you start hitting the age of sort of the mid-30s, and certainly in pregnancy for women, you should be screened. You should be checked. You should go and have a test. It's an easy blood test. You don't have to be fasting. It's called an HbA1c. HbA1c. That test is something that you can get easily done and will help to find diabetes, because this is the problem. It's a silent disease. It's a silent disease, Dave.
And what's that number have to be? There's all these different numbers, eh?
Sure. So for HbA1c, so that's a reflection of your blood sugar control over the last 3 months. So that's not like what you get on a finger prick with the diabetes testing kit. Yeah. So that's a different number. But this number that I'm talking about is what you have to go to the laboratory to get this test.
Yeah.
The normal is less than 41. At 50, you've got diabetes. And then there's this in-between stage between 41 and 50, which is diabetes, which is impaired glucose tolerance. So that's that in-between stage. And you really want to try and understand that you have it in that in-between stage, because we know from good research, Dave, I know you're not the biggest fan of research, but good research done over in many countries of the world, that if you intervene in that stage and wait for it through diet and lifestyle, you can reduce the risk by 2/3 of developing diabetes. So you pick up people in that stage between 41 and 50, you can reduce the chance of diabetes by 2/3.
Wow.
And that's more effective than taking medicine in that stage.
Man, that's amazing. And look, I'm not against research.
I know you're not. I'm teasing you.
But there is some research that I'm just like thinking, really, are you going to spend money on this bloody thing? Someone would come to see me about, they want to research about the effects, the benefits of exercise on elderly.
Yeah.
I said, what the hell do you want to? Of course, it's beneficial.
Yeah.
How much money are you getting to do this? So that's just frustrating. I mean, I get we need it, and I'm really happy that it's just. But some of it, surely, even for yourself, do you see some research studies and you think, man, why are we spending money? Why is there being money spent on this? Yeah.
It's true that not every bit of research is worth doing, and but it is certainly something. I mean, the reason to do research is that you can hopefully in a systematic way, document the findings. And that actually is really important, because then you can prove what you're doing is effective.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm pumped, man. Can diabetes be reversed? Well, type 2 can, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, so that's important. Type 1 cannot, okay? But type 2, and especially if you get to that impaired glucose stage, so that stage between normal and diabetes, that can be reversed. And even when you've got diabetes, you can reverse it. And the biggest factor is going to be lifestyle. The other thing that some people who are watching may have heard about is that there's surgery that can be done. But that's really when we prefer not to have to get to surgery, but there is surgery. And when you do the surgery to make the stomach smaller, that can reverse the diabetes. But we'd much prefer to intervene well before needing to go for an operation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the operation. There's definitely a place for it, you know, as I believe a last resort, hey?
Yeah.
You know,
but that's why if we say, like, how are we going to do this? We've got to start with our kids, okay, with our bokapuna. We've got to start with them, and we've got to teach them to eat well. Before we came online, you were talking about one of the lockdown lessons you've learned is to have a meal with your kids most nights.
Yeah.
Now, if we sit around the table instead of the television and we eat together, that's going to help us keep our weight down. It's going to help those social interactions, and it's going to role model eating good food with our families, okay? Yeah. So we start with our kids. Then we get our kids mobile, off their devices. Hey, you're not on that device for an hour, and you're going to get outside and you're going to do some exercise, you know? We're going to encourage it. So we start with our kids, and we start to show them the way. And then we can try to prevent this from happening. Because at the moment, what we're seeing, Dave, is that through some other research I'm involved with, is we're seeing that across Auckland, that the people who are presenting with diabetes under age 30 is growing exponentially. Now, that was when 30 years ago, it was rare to see a teenager with type 2 diabetes. Now we see teenagers, you know, 15-year-olds with type 2 diabetes.
I met a I think a 14-year-old with type 2 diabetes. And it's just, it just wasn't, you know, I just looked straight at the parents, you know. But, you know, so of those, all these teenagers you're now seeing type 2 diabetic, is that mostly Māori PI, or what's the breakup there?
Unfortunately, the burden is largely with Māori and Pacifica people, and I don't want to blame the parents. I'm not blaming the parents, because we've created an environment, and you've spoken about this. We've created an environment that is obesogenic. Now, that's a big word, obesogenic, but what it means is fat making, okay? We've created an environment that makes people fat. So we've got readily available fast food that's heavily promoted on television, that's cheap, and that's rubbish, okay? And then we've become inactive. And you put those two things together, and we've got a toxic environment. You know, so I've heard you say the only drive-through you should come through is through your flu vax. I can't agree with you more. I mean, that is the only drive-through we should be going through.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, these fast food chains, they should be made to pay subsidies, just like the gambling, just like alcohol, and to pay more tax, because in the areas that are doing the most damage, and they can't be left to just do whatever they want.
No.
And rape and pillage in our communities, and the most deprived communities, like bloody Pizza Hut with the $1 pizzas, you know. And you know, we cause a bit of stir about that, but it's you know, like that environment, and the most, you know, for us parents who are working all these long hours, we're coming home, the last thing we want to do is cook a healthy meal. You see some cheap takeaways, you go and get it, you sit in front of the TV, eat it, then go to sleep, wake up.
And I have lots of understanding and compassion for that kind of situation, Dave. I mean, I understand that people are working hard, money's hard to get by. And so it's much easier to take the easy option, and occasionally it's fine, you know. I mean, occasionally it's absolutely fine, but in general terms, what we need to try and do is eat simple, eat naked food. It doesn't have to be flash, it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be expensive.
Well, you know, when I first started, I was broke. I had nothing. I was 210 kilos, and I just ate really basically like I was in prison. So really basic food, and I lost all the weight with no money and just going for walks. And like we're saying with this lockdown, we've still been eating nice, but just real, you know, we make our own burgers, you know. It's all you know, with good mince patties, and you know, and just doing that stuff at home instead of getting processed stuff. At least we know what's in it. So
absolutely.
You know, we're still eating nice and having a treat. That's what we're saying. That's what you're saying. It's
Yep,
fine to
absolutely.
treat yourself, just not every day, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't put money in them. Don't put money in the pockets of the fast food people.
Yeah, no, definitely not. You've got we've got Ronnie saying if your toe starts tingling, is that bad?
Well, it's a warning sign. One of the problems with diabetes is it damages blood vessels, and it damages small blood vessels and large blood vessels. And the small blood vessels supply your eyes, your kidneys, and the nerves of your feet. And when those blood vessels and the nerves of your feet start getting damaged, you start to get tingling. So that is definitely a warning sign that all is not well and that you've got some complications from diabetes there. So we know that if you improve your blood sugar control, that can start to improve the nerve damage. So yeah, it's an important warning sign there, Dave. And the big blood vessels that it's damaged, that's the real problem. So that's to your heart and to your brain and the blood supply to your legs. And if you damage your blood supply to your brain, that's a stroke. If you damage the blood supply to your heart, that's a heart attack. And unfortunately, the major problem for people with diabetes is that they die of heart attacks. That's the major cause of death.
Man, that's you know, I mean, I knew a little bit about type 2 diabetes because just with the people we're working with, and you know, and we're helping them change lifestyle habits, eat better, basic. So when I'm giving a meal plan, I just say, look, this is the types of food you can eat. So just eat it, you know, and give real basic measurements, you know, just using some palm sizes. And, you know, and like one lady who was type 1 diabetic, her, what's that,
HbA1c.
So it was like 60 something. And then it's come down to in the low 50s.
Fantastic.
Type 1. And her doctors are just couldn't believe it. They said, what? Because they've basically given up, saying, look, they told her mum that, you know, it's all about just making her comfortable now.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So, you know, thanks to this program. And when I actually went over to her house, I'd never met her. I went over to her. She just done my online program and just, you know, basic stuff. So I went over to see the parents, and you could just see the relief. The parents are elderly, great people. And they just, the relief, they said, you know, knowing that, geez, there's something out there working for my daughter. You know, we don't have to worry about what's going to happen, you know, when we go, you know.
And that's the thing, you know, you can reduce the risk of those complications. So if you can get that HbA1c number, and people with diabetes are smart, okay, they know this, okay, and they should be the experts on their own condition. And if you can get that HbA1c number for most people between 50 and 55, that's going to reduce the risk of complications by a big amount, okay. So I would really encourage everyone who has diabetes or even pre-diabetes in that 41 to 50 range, hey, become your own expert, and you become the expert in what you need to do, and know your numbers. So know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol, know your HbA1c, because all of those things come together to determine what's going to be your risk of heart attack and stroke.
Man, so it's just how up there is this in terms of a killer in New Zealand?
This is a big problem, Dave. Diabetes is a big problem in New Zealand, okay? And as I've said to you earlier on, in some Pacific populations, 1 in 2 people in the 50 to 60-year-old age group has diabetes. This is a big risk factor for dying early, for kidney failure, for heart disease, for stroke, for losing the feeling in your feet. For blokes, a big problem for blokes is the ability to have sex. They can't get erections because of the nerve damage that occurs. So this is a disease that affects from the top of your head down to the toes.
If that's not a reason to go outside right now and go for a run, I don't know why. Put down the fizzy drink. You know what? That's motivation right there to tell people, you know, when I'm going to meet these guys, I'll say, hey, man, you want to continue? If you want to have kids later? Geez, I'd never thought, I'd never heard of that. So, but I mean, they're all, man,
that's a real thing.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into when I was overweight. I won't go into that. But I only found out the other month when BBM did diabetes test that I that because I had a baby over 9 pounds, I should have regular tests as I could get diabetes now. That's coming from my wife.
Right. Yeah. So Corinne, that's a good question. So yeah, big babies are a sign that you might have had unrecognized diabetes in pregnancy, and so that's because the baby gets lots of blood glucose, and so it grows too big, and that's one of the problems of pregnancy. So. And if you've had diabetes in pregnancy, you stand a 1 in 2 chance of developing diabetes later in life. So it's a real warning. So if we're thinking about people where we want to intervene, it's the group of women who've had diabetes in pregnancy. We want to try and help them to get weight down, to keep active, and that'll help to reduce their risk of developing diabetes in the long term.
So everything I'm hearing, man, is really just highlighting the importance of doing this research with you guys for BBM, to really get it cemented. Hey, this is a genuine program that works, that can take people from being diabetic to no longer. Man, so it's just amazing, bro. How come I don't feel unwell even if I have diabetes?
That's what we talked about earlier, Dave, is the silent disease. So you can have quite high blood sugars, and it's a bit like cooking a frog in water. If you slowly warm the water up, the frog doesn't jump out, and until it actually just dies in the water. So that's the problem. Your blood sugars gradually come up, and until they're really high, you don't feel anything. And all the time, the damage is happening to those blood vessels. All the time, it's happening. And so some people present to us already with complications. They've got eye disease, they don't know it. They've got heart disease, they don't know it. They've got kidney disease, they don't know it, because it's just been happening all the time in the background.
And I guess...
Sorry, Dad.
No, you go. Yep.
Well, I see the next question there, which is, why do I have to take some medications when I don't feel sick? Well, I've just said, because we're trying to keep your blood pressure down, we're trying to keep your cholesterol down, we're trying to keep your blood sugars down. And none of those necessarily make you feel better, but it's a bit like paying, for some people, insurance. You're paying ahead so that you can prevent it for the day that's coming in the future, So that's why we ask people to take a lot of medications typically. But what we do see is when people are able to lose a lot of weight is they can often reduce those medications and not necessarily be on all of them. So there's always an opportunity to try and do that. But if you're going to do that, make sure you've got the supervision of your doctor or your diabetes nurse or diabetes specialist to make sure that you're not doing yourself any harm.
Yeah, we had a lady who was type 2 diabetic for 15 years and 12 weeks with us doing this real basic meal plan. Which is basically, like you're saying, eating lots of veggies and meat and good fats, real just basic how we're supposed to eat. And after 12 weeks, she was no longer her doctors were just like, they just couldn't believe it. I guess it's what we're doing is pretty rare.
Yeah, and what you can see, Dave, in people who are able to lose that weight and do the exercise and so on, you can see if you look in their pancreas, it's no longer got so much fat in it. It's got less fat in it, and it starts to make more insulin. So you can see those changes happening in people who are able to do that.
The next question we've got here, bro, is what is the best diet to eat?
So again, eating natural or naked as much as possible, the 5+ a day, and we need to make sure that it's lots of vegetables and lots of different vegetables. So fruits and vegetables, but mainly vegetables, and eat the colors of the rainbow. So when you put down on your plate, if it's all golden, you've made a bad choice, okay? We want to have the colors of the rainbow there. So the reds, the greens, the whites, the yellows, and all of those things is a good diet to eat. I saw you were giving up fish the other day. Fish is an excellent meat source. Unfortunately, it's quite expensive, but if you can get it, it's really good as a good meat source. And otherwise, meat with the least fat on it is good. Lots of beans. If you can get the beans and the lentils into your diet, really good stuff. Really good for your diet.
Even butter beans.
Even butter beans, fantastic. Bridget makes a wicked butter bean curry, I can tell you. Come and have it one day.
Yeah, thanks. That fish we got, thanks to it was just epic. We got heaps of it, and we're giving it out. In fact, I didn't really, because I never buy it. I'd forgotten how expensive it was.
So expensive, yeah.
This one lot of fish. We looked on Countdown. For the Countdown, it was $34 a kilo for this tiraki that we got. It's just crazy. So
But Dave, before, one of the things about the fish is if you get like the cans of tuna, they're relatively cheap, and tuna's a good fish. Mackerel, if people like mackerel, again in the cans, that sort of is often, and if you get the tuna that's in water, it's a very good protein source.
Yeah, you still get those cans, eh? Thanks to I got to give these guys a plug. Thanks to Sanford and Sons for supplying us with all that fish. A lot of fish we got, and we've given out to a lot of people that haven't had fresh fish in a long time. So it was a real blessing to be able to give that. And we're going to be having fish every week too. So fish is on the menu every week. So
fantastic.
So we keep giving that to all our people. So it's awesome. So thanks to the team there.
Dave, I would recommend, just before I answer Deborah's question, is that people try and aim to have at least 2 meat-free days a week. Okay, so like we aim to have at least 2 alcohol-free days a week, we have at least 2 meat-free days a week. Okay, because what's been shown is the less red meat you eat, the healthier it is for you. So the more vegetarian type meals we can eat, and the more with fish that we can eat, the better it is for you. And
fish is okay. Most days. Fish is okay most days, every day fish.
Fantastic. Yeah, fish is fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, well, thanks to the team at Sanford and Sons again. We'll have fish every week for our people. So that's good. Excellent. Meat, I don't know if I can go, I love my red meat though, but I guess if you can go 2 days without it, it might be good.
Yeah, I like my red meat too, Dave, but the point we know about it is that it's a cancer-causing meat, and it's high in fat, okay? Red meat has got lots of fat in it. So if we're trying to cut down on our fat, trying to cut down on our risks overall, then less red meat. And the portion size for the palm of even your hand, Dave, that's as much meat as you should be having.
Yeah, that's
no more than that.
Yep. My uncle Ula's gone full vegan.
Yeah. So
documentary went vegan.
Yeah, no. I'm not so into the full vegan. I think that a balanced diet is a good idea, and but I think in the sense of reducing red meat, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. We got Deborah's question here. Can you tell us about diabetes and its association with kidney failure, timelines, public waiting transplant lists, treatment, etc.?
Okay, so that's a really good question, because one of the leading cause of kidney failure in New Zealand and Australia is diabetes. Kidney failure is a real problem. So again, it's about getting in early. If you can get in early, we can help with medications and blood sugar control that will limit the progression. But when you get to real problems and you need to be on something called dialysis, some people may know about that. There's a large proportion of people who are on dialysis, and that's either being hooked up to a machine or having bags emptied in and out of your abdomen to do the action of your kidneys. We can't live without our kidneys, so we either need a machine or some form of what we call dialysis, or even a kidney transplant. So in terms of waiting lists and so on, I think a part of that is if you're waiting for a kidney transplant, it depends on getting a donor. So this is a plea. If you want to do something for people, tell your whānau that you are willing to be an organ donor, okay? And that's particularly so for Māori and Pacific people, because there are not many donors. And I understand that that's a tricky thing, and it's difficult, and it needs to be talked about. But if you want to give the gift of life when you die, or if something happens to you, you can be an organ donor, and you can give lots of organs. And I don't want to be morbid here, Dave, but if we die, we can give our corneas of our eyes, we can give our hearts, we can give our lungs, we can give our liver, we can give our kidneys. And if you think of how many people that can all go to sustain life, that's really important. So one of the things about the waiting list is the limitation on the number of donors we have for kidneys. And people with diabetes often need transplants. So that's what determines some of the waiting lists.
And what's the go with, lots of type 2 diabetics have limbs amputated, it's happening all the time at Middlemore.
Yeah, so there is 2 problems there. The one is, earlier on, Ronnie talked about the tingling in your feet. And so that's a sign that the nerves are getting damaged. And after the tingling, what often happens is you get numb feet. So you just can't feel your feet. And if you're walking around and you get a cut on your foot, or you might have shoes on, and you might even have a grain of sand, you won't be able to feel it rubbing in your foot, and you get a sore on your foot. And then if you combine that with limited blood flow, remember I said it damages the large blood vessels that go to your legs. So if you can't feel and you've got limited blood flow, that's what puts you at real risk of getting ulcers in your feet and ultimately, in some cases, needing to have amputations. So again, that should be preventable. That should be something that we can deal with. And the way we deal with it, again, Dave, I sound like a stuck record, but it's keeping the blood sugars down, keeping the weight down, being active, doing exercise. Really important.
I've seen Ronnie on Facebook through this lockdown. He's been doing a lot of exercise with his family. So, Ronnie, if these questions are about you or someone, bro, make sure you go and tell them to get checked, or you get checked. But he has been making that change, which I've been really happy to see with Ronnie. He's a good friend of our families, Ronnie. So go and get checked, brother, and continue with the exercise, which is the next question. Is exercise important?
Yeah, well, I don't think I'd be on here if I didn't think it was. Yeah, it's clearly important, but I guess, and there's what you're doing, Dave, is fantastic, but I think there's other bits, that we should think about. It's just like being active. So there's the dedicated exercise times, and then it's just being active, taking every opportunity. So what I do is, like, I'll park my car as far away from the meeting I've got to go to as I can, so that I can walk the extra steps. I won't go in the lift. I'll climb the stairs. So those sorts of things. When I talk on the phone, I don't sit down. I walk the office back and forth. I pace the office walking, so that I'm not sitting talking on the phone, so that we just take every opportunity to be mobile.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, we talk about it a lot, and in my trainer, something that he talks about it to me is, we're in the gym. If we're in BBM at our boot camp, you're there for 45 minutes to an hour. There's another 23 hours of the day.
Yep.
It's not what you do in the gym. It's what you're doing outside of it that matters. Doing those little things like walking the stairs. When I park in the city, a lot of the times especially in the early part of my journey, when I was on the weight loss hard, I would walk everywhere. When I first met Corrine, my wife, I didn't have any money, so all of our walks, all of our dates were romantic walks. So we walked all the different mountains and enjoyed views, walked to the supermarket. If I parked in the city, I'd park up the top, and then when I come back, I'd have to walk up the stairs. All those little things count, bro?
Yeah, it all counts, absolutely. And what you're doing in the gym is really important. And if people can get to your gym 3 times a week for, yours are sessions of 45 minutes, fantastic. But do something. Just move. Move. That's the most important thing. I mean, you're off the couch program. Fantastic. I just said big hat off to you guys and to those participants who are brave enough and to say, I'll start by trying to just move off my couch. Man, that is bravery. That is mana. That is hats off to them.
That from the couch program, that's our signature program, man. That's a game changer and something that it's just not out there,
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, no. And again, to those people who are sitting on the couch now and are thinking about doing it, do it. And to the people who you're engaged with in doing it, keep doing it. Keep progressing. And it's hard, and you'll step back for a few days or whatever, and through this lockdown it might have been hard, but let's keep going. Let's not stop. Yeah,
this lockdown's been tough for everyone, especially for us. It's been tough on myself, and I've been going for 5-6 years. And for people that are just started out from the couch program, it's been really tough. But thankfully, we'll still stay connected.
Yep.
And what we said is just get through this lockdown the best you can.
Yep.
Hey, it's hard. Just get through it the best you can. There's already no takeaways, so that's one good thing. Big step taken.
Yep.
And it's hard to go to the shop. Stand in lines is hard. If you want to go get a chocolate, you got to wait for it. So it might not be worth it, Yeah. So
absolutely.
just get through it, bro.
Yeah.
We've got the next question here. What parts of the body diabetes damage?
So as we talked about, Dave, the damage is the small blood vessels, and that, as I said, was your eyes, the kidneys, the blood supply of your nerves of your feet. We talked about the problem with the men not being able to have erections, and then the larger blood vessels, which is the blood supply to the brain, which can look like strokes, the blood supply to the heart attacks, and the blood supply to the legs, which can result in people losing their feet. Unfortunately, this high sugars just damages every part of the body, and that's why it's so important to get the blood sugars down.
Yeah, and just to our men again, the doctor's bringing it up a bit to the men. That should be enough. Not being able to get an erection should be enough. Look, I was 210 kilos, and I remember, and it's true. I'm not too proud to say that. I'm not. It's been real.
And the problem is the tablets that can be used, the Viagras, there's no funding for them, so they're $20 a pop. You need to think about that one too.
Again, I'm going to hold some of my stuff. Keep PG. Over exercising is what I do, and Leanne, you do over exercise, and we've talked about it before. Obviously, over exercising not good. Doctor?
Yeah, it is a problem. Yep, it is, because what we see on the other extreme is people who are underweight, and we see women who lose their periods because they do too much exercise, and it's not good for their bones, it's not good for their bodies, and they obviously have difficulty having children. So over exercise can be a real problem, and it's the same for men. Men can have exactly the same problem. So it's all about the balance, eh?
Yeah, and what I've said to Mia when I've spoken to a lot of us, because a lot of us in BBM who have been through this journey, and even myself still now, I think if I don't do something, if I don't kill myself at training at least once a day, if I don't do that, I'm gonna be obese again. I'm gonna be fat again. That's the way I think.
Yep.
But the way I have to remind myself, and I remind our members, is that the only way we feel the benefits of the training is when we rest, right? We got to get that rest.
Yep.
So we recover.
Yeah, you got to recover. And also, I know Bridget works with you as well, but what she's doing is she's trying to get the flexibility. So it's not all about the power. It's about the stretch and the tone and the flexibility. It's about different sorts of strengths. So I really want to encourage people to think about exercise in lots of different ways. And Dave, you know what? I just had this argument with my brother, who's about 3 years younger than me, and he's telling me how fast he can run and all this sort of thing. And I said to him, listen, mate, I'm going to keep my weight down, and I'm going to do endurance walking. And so I go for long walks, and I just really enjoy doing that. And everyone needs to find something that's right for them. Okay.
Yeah.
And overdoing it, whatever you do, is going to hurt you. So doing it right, doing it careful, under supervision, it's the way to go.
Yeah, doing that, having that balance. With your wife's stretch and tone class, I actually started it because I needed to stretch and relax.
Yep.
And I think I've done the first half hour of her first class, and then I've never done, I've never done another one. And I don't want to ruin the zen in the class by coming in filled with 10 cups of coffee and trying to stretch. But during this lockdown, I've actually stretched every day, and
excellent.
I'm feeling amazing for my. I'm able to sit down on the ground now, like when you're at school and you sit down in the classroom and you fold your. I couldn't do that before lockdown. Couldn't touch my toes.
Yeah, all the big strong blokes, they should try and do that stretch and tone class. They'll come out of there pretty sore. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, it's humbling, especially if you go in and you're strong. So, man, I do all of this in the gym. I do all of our classes, and then you do the stretch and tone class. And if you go in there with an ego, you'll come out humbled because
very much so.
Brenda's got a question here. How long can a type 1 diabetic continue in diabetic distress, including
winging and guessing levels? DK must catch up, I'm guessing. Yeah, Brenda, that's a really good question. So I'm not sure what exactly you mean by diabetic distress, but certainly you shouldn't be guessing your blood sugar levels. So this is about testing your blood sugars using a finger pricking device, and there's more sophisticated devices available as well. But if you've got type 1 diabetes, you should be doing at least 3 or 4 tests every single day to know how much insulin to give yourself. And if you've got type 2 diabetes and you're on insulin, you also need to be testing. If you've got type 1, not only will so what she's meaning by DKA, it's a state where people with type 1 get their body into a real acid state. They get real sick. They vomit. It's a life-threatening situation. You need emergency treatment in hospital, and people can die from it. So it's really important. Winging it is not a great option, Brenda, and I would encourage people to test regularly so that you know how much insulin to give.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question there, Brenda. So get that sorted. We got one here from Vicky, one of our Grace Foundation family here. Is getting a large, consistent numbness in thigh a sign of getting diabetes later? What's your thoughts on sugar-free drinks?
So the first bit about the numbness in the thigh, I mean, that's hard to be sure. Typically, the numbness that occurs in people with diabetes is what we call glove and stocking. So if you think about where you might wear gloves and where you might have socks, that's the sort of numbness that it occurs in. So it's at the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes and under your feet. That's where it starts. So the thigh would be an unusual place. It is possible, but it's unusual. On sugar-free drinks, I think that personally, I would encourage people to just drink water or milk. That's what I'd encourage, is water or milk.
Milk.
Yep. Milk. Yep. Just normal milk. Especially
Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "Milk's for babies. Milk's for babies."
Don't believe everything the Californian mayor says. Yeah, I mean, if especially for children, milk's a really good thing to drink. So I would encourage water. In terms of sugar-free drinks, if you want a fizzy drink, you're much better to drink a fizzy drink that's sugar-free than one that's got sugar in it. But just limit the amount, because it's full of processed stuff. It's got lots of chemicals in it, and I think you want to avoid it. But yeah, so if you're out on a social occasion, have a sugar-free drink. Yeah, that's much better than a sugary one, 100%. But don't make it regular. Don't drink large volumes. Best drink is water. And if, as I say, especially if you've got kids and you want them to have something in between meals, then a glass of milk's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I drink tons of water. If you have it with you, you're a lot more likely to drink it. I have a weakness for sugar-free. It's something I battle. When I first got off fizzy drinks, I would the sugar, like Coke and stuff.
Yeah,
drink a lot of Diet Coke and a lot of Coke Zero, and I'll cut it. I cut it for ages, and then on this lockdown, I started drinking a little bit of it, and then it just creeps back in. So I haven't had one in a few days now.
And the problem with that, if you're drinking some of those sugar-free drinks, is they're also full of caffeine as well. So it's not, although they don't have the sugar in, they've also got caffeine. So you've got to be a bit careful.
Yeah, I don't mind caffeine, but yes, it's the other stuff. What percentage of the population is obese, and is obesity more prevalent in any ethnic groups? From Boris.
Yes, thanks, Boris. I mean, it depends on where you look and what definitions you use for obesity, but there is a large proportion of the New Zealand population that is obese. And unfortunately, obesity tracks with poverty. So that's the biggest predictor of obesity, is poverty. And it's not so much ethnicity, it's much more to do with poverty. So where poor people and poorness is, that's where you find obesity. So it's poverty. That's one of the major drivers of obesity, is poverty.
And it's funny, when people, the people that aren't just aren't aware of the struggles that we, a lot of our people go through. They'll sit and say, how can you be in a poor area and be how are they buying all this food? But it's the crap that's available to us. That's what, if we have no money, we're buying the crap that's cheap.
Yep. And it's the environment. And I mean, so when you walk down the road and you've got, fast food joint after fast food joint, and you've got the fizzy that's way cheaper than anything else if you're going to buy something, and you can buy 2 liters for 99 cents or whatever, it's, and you're on a limited income, that's the problem, So we've created this environment. So until we get the balls to actually make some laws and say enough is enough of this sort of stuff, we're not going to change the environment. So there's 2 parts to this. The one is the choices we make as individuals, and the second is what we allow to happen into our country in terms of this cheap.
How do we change that?
Food.
Because when I did that, when I went on the news about that $1 pizza, it caused a bit of a stir. But I was just asking a few people that in the politics, and say, how can we change it? And basically you've got to be. You've got to have some political power.
So yes, Dave, you do have to have political power. But the other thing is, you've got a big following, Dave. And if all of your BBM followers decided that we are no longer going to support fast food joints, if we no longer, because once the business dries up, we've seen that some fast food joints haven't survived lockdown. Okay, so if the business dries up, they'll stop doing it, because they're only in it for the money. They're only in it for the money, not for any other purpose.
Yeah.
So if your followers decided, hey, we're going to take a stand and we're going to not do that, that'll make a big noise. You've got a lot of followers, mate. You've got big impact.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to, we've been talking about it a lot, not going back, but treating it as a treat. Like when we were kids, bro, if my parents took us to McDonald's or something like that, we got dressed up like we were going to church. It was a big deal to go to these places, whereas now it's just something we do. It's an everyday thing for a lot of us. So it's all mindset, bro? We can do it. Yeah,
absolutely, we can.
The next one is we've got can I prevent the damage caused by diabetes? Now, sorry, bro, just before that, I see questions about the difference between type 1 and stuff. A lot of these questions, if you're just coming, please wait till we're off and go back and watch this, because there's heaps of questions that if you just joined us that we've answered already. So just go back and watch it again. But can I prevent the damage caused by diabetes?
You can certainly reduce the risk tremendously. Okay, so we've talked about earlier finding it in that in-between stage between normal blood sugars and diabetes. There's that in-between stage. So through that lifestyle intervention, then as we've talked about, diabetes is a progressive disorder, so you need more and more interventions with medications and sometimes insulin. So just as I don't like to give too many numbers, but 10 years after you've been found with diabetes, 1 in 2 people need to be on insulin. Okay, so that's type 2 diabetes. 1 in 2 people after 10 years of diabetes need insulin. So we can reduce the risk by getting blood sugars into a good low range without making them too low. The other things that we look at I talked about it earlier, about knowing your numbers. So know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol, know your HbA1c, which is that 3-month marker of blood sugar control. Because these things all work together to, if they're high, they increase your risk of heart attacks and strokes. And if we can control them, we can reduce the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and kidney failure, and so on. So yes, there's absolutely things we can do to reduce the risks and reduce them substantially. There is lots that can be done. And the other thing, Dave, is, when you get an invitation to go for a diabetes check, please go. If you get an invitation to go and have your eyes checked when you've got diabetes, please go, because you won't know that you've got eye damage happening. You'll be seeing perfectly and you'll say, what's wrong? There's nothing. I don't feel anything. My eyes are perfectly fine. But at the back, this silent disease is causing damage all the time. But the eye specialists can intervene at an early stage and stop it from getting to a late stage. But even in terms of your eyes, getting the blood sugars down is really important.
Man, and it's like you're saying, we're taking advantage of those when you're being invited. Like we're running quite often free pop-up clinics where you can come and get checked, which is, again, something amazing that BBM does. We just do it. We just do these pop-up clinics. Next Saturday, we've got our the flu vaccination. Again, we're running our free flu vaccination. We're doing it in the Countdown car park this time, so it's undercover. We're doing it at 9 a.m. next Saturday. So not this Saturday, next Saturday, all free.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Can we touch on this, Bo? Because I'm actually copping a lot of flack around, the anti-vaxxers. And people, I'm actually getting a lot of messages from people. And I don't mind it, because I don't mind if people, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm not forcing it on anyone. I'm offering a service. But some people, when they use God, they're messaging me about God, and I should know, being a Christian and being an SDR, I should know better. And I'm just saying, hey man, God also says you can't judge. So what's your thoughts on it, man? Because I'm actually copping a lot of flack around from anti-vaxxers.
Well, let me say this first up. Doing the vaccination that you're doing is so important, Dave. You are saving lives. Okay, let me just let that rest. You are saving lives. Okay, people die of the usual flu every year. People forget that. People die of the usual flu every year. This year in particular, with the COVID-19 going around, we need to make sure that we don't overwhelm our health systems. So everything we can do to not overwhelm our health systems is really important and will save lives. So getting the flu vaccine is extremely important. Now, you and I both remember that in Samoa, just last year, how many little kids died because they got measles? A vaccine-preventable death. And why did it happen in Samoa? Well, it happened, first of all, because it came from New Zealand. But secondly, it happened because there were very low vaccination rates. And so we can see the effects. We had an outbreak in New Zealand because the vaccination rates were low. And that's just, these are vaccine preventable deaths. Dave, I don't know if you remember smallpox, okay, but smallpox was a disease that was sort of dying out when I was growing up, 50 years ago. But before that, smallpox was one of the most feared diseases on earth, but we were able to get rid of it through vaccination, okay? There's no smallpox in the world today because of vaccination. And so we need to, I don't understand the thinking behind why you wouldn't have a vaccine. They are safe, they are effective, they save lives. So I strongly endorse what you're doing, and I would strongly encourage you to keep doing it. Yes, people have a choice, but if you've got a choice to save a life, then why would you not take that choice?
Yeah, just because we went on One News, and I didn't really realize, how many people were against it. I guess it wasn't it wasn't heaps of people, but there's definitely been people, a few people, and I'll take it, because everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's only when they start using God, that annoys me. So I'll quickly search a Bible verse or get Uncle to send me something, and just send them that back. But all we're doing is trying to help people. We're not trying to force anyone on anything. But it's next Saturday at 9 a.m. And it's in the Countdown car park in Manukau, the underground car park, right next to South Point. So it's all there, but we'll post everything on this page. So it's all free for everyone. So there's really, it's no excuse, and we'll probably have a whole bunch of food we'll be giving out as well. So
yeah,
so it'll be good. Look, we're nearly there, bro. We're nearly there with these questions. So it's awesome, really informative. So our next one is, does diabetes run in families?
Yeah, it does. It does, both type 1 and type 2. It's very common that it runs in families, and that's a bit to do with genes, and it's a bit to do with the environment. So, in our families, we can make a big difference by the environment. That's the thing we can control. We can't control our genes, but we can control our environment. So let's think about that. And if your parents and your uncles and your aunties and your brothers and sisters got diabetes, go get a test, because there's a good chance you'll have it too, and then you can intervene early to prevent it from getting worse.
Yeah. Okay, so I just had to block a comment from one of those people I was talking about. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but you don't need to come on strong and start swearing. It's just ridiculous. So I just block you, and now you can never get any of our motivation. So it's it's no good unless you message me and say sorry. Why do people with diabetes die at a younger age?
So again, that's because of this blood vessel damage that's happening, and mainly because of heart attacks, and especially the combination of kidney disease and heart disease. That's really plays a risk in that. And again, as we've talked about a lot through this talk tonight, Dave, there's a lot we can do to reduce those risks and make the chance of dying younger significantly less.
Yeah. And just going back to that as well, with the measles thing in Samoa, you go and ask those parents who BBM supported were big supporters of the ASA Foundation, sending money, getting donations, so that these parents who didn't have enough money to do burials, so you go and see those parents and ask them, it really gets me. It's really got me pissed off now that these people, you go and ask them if they had the opportunity to go back and vaccinate, because a lot of them didn't even have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that annoys me.
Yeah.
We've got here, is diabetes becoming more common?
Yeah, it does seem to be, Dave, and the major driver behind that is weight. So earlier on, we talked about how younger and younger people are presenting with type 2 diabetes. And so we see teenagers presenting with diabetes, and so it is getting more common, and we need to reverse that. We need to turn the tide. Enough is enough. No excuses. Let's turn the tide, and that's it. No excuses. We need to try and turn this tide, and it's up to us as individuals and together to make the difference.
Yeah, Oh, we got our last question here, bro, and my son's starting to cry because he wants to go to sleep. We've got our last one here. Can I become pregnant if I have diabetes?
Yes, you can, but the most important messages around that, Dave, is to know that you have diabetes before you get pregnant, ideally. So some pregnancies are not planned, I get that, but if you have diabetes and you're planning a pregnancy, you should make sure that there's good control of your diabetes, because the lower your blood sugars, the better the chances your baby will be born without abnormalities. And you also need to be taking something called folic acid, folate for at least 3 months before you fall pregnant. Ideally, I know not every pregnancy is planned, but the best thing to do is to plan your pregnancies and to get tested. And so if you're pregnant, and especially if there's a strong family history of diabetes, go to your doctor and say, do you think I need a test for diabetes? Because the sooner it can be picked up in a pregnancy, the better it is. Generally, we screen everyone once they're into the second trimester. But if there's, that's the second part of pregnancy. But if there's a strong family history of diabetes, you may want to get checked before, and ideally plan for it. If possible.
Awesome, bro. Hey, so look, just in finishing, what would be some take homes for people? Just a couple of take homes,
Sure.
Some tips for people.
So the first thing to take home is that this is a common problem. There's nothing to be ashamed about, but there's a lot that can be done to intervene. And I think if we know your numbers, and again, I've talked about it a few times, know your HbA1c, know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol. And if they are not measuring up, ask what can be done to help. And wherever you are in your situation, whether you've got early diabetes or if you're in the later part of your diabetes, exercise as much as you can, and that's reasonable. Careful with your diet can all make a big, big difference in addition to whatever the medical profession can offer to help.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, man, what you said there. And, just me finishing. What you said there is exactly right. What we've seen in BBM is that type 2 and type 1, we've had people with type 1 that number you're talking about, I keep thinking the
HbA1c, yep.
That number comes down, and type 2 diabetics who are no longer type 2 diabetics after only a few weeks start moving, and we start with our from the couch, real basic, just moving, just moving, even moving on the couch, and watching what we eat, eating, like you're saying, naked foods, lots of veg, good proteins, and staying consistent, and so it's it works, it works if you work. Hey.
Yep, absolutely.
So, brother, hey man, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll pop up if you can. Maybe if Bridget can show you my page, my Brown Buttabean page, and see if you've missed any. There's a lot of questions here. Okay. Maybe if we have, maybe if there's a website people can go to, if you send me something for some frequently asked questions, just because this is there's hundreds of comments on here.
Well, if we need to do another session, Dave, I'm happy to do that again as well, if that helps. I know you said this was your last one, but maybe we do another one sometime.
Maybe do it on the weekend a bit earlier or something.
Yeah, sure. You let me know.
Thank you very much, bro. God bless, man. Thank you. And tell Bridget we're looking forward to her stretching class, and I'll definitely join now, okay? Because my new nickname is Yogi Bean. Okay.
Nice. And Dave, you guys keep doing the work you're doing. You're making a big difference, and including the vaccination. Don't let them frighten you off. You're doing the right thing.
Thanks, man. No, we'll keep on it. We'll keep on it. Thank you, brother.
Okay,
See you later. See you, crew.